Our 2021 expenditures for those in need in 188 countries worldwide was $906 million, almost $1 billion.
Hi everyone, Nemo here. My recent criticisms of the Church's apparent land-purchase-to-charitable-giving ratio has caused several people to bring up the figure of $1 billion as touted by Dallin H.
Almost $1 billion.
So I thought I'd break down exactly why that $1 billion figure is misleading. No, it's not because he said almost and it's actually 906 million. It's because in 2016, Dallin H. said,
Care for the poor and needy is not optional or incidental in our church. We do this worldwide. For example, in the year 2015, we had 177 emergency response projects in 56 countries. In addition, we had hundreds of projects that impacted more than 1 million people in 7 other categories of assistance, such as clean water, immunization, and vision care. For more than 30 years, the magnitude of these efforts has averaged about $40 million a year.
And the Church's 2020 charitable giving report has an assistance total over that same time frame of $2.5 billion total, which works out at around $70 million annually. Now, it could be that Dallin H. was talking about hard spend and the report was cash and non-cash assistance given as a monetary value, such as volunteer hours. But whichever number you take, it's a more than tenfold increase to go from $40 or $70 million annually to $906 million annually in the space of only 1 year. That's the kind of jump that makes people like me suspicious. And I'm not the only one that got suspicious. The Widow's Mite report has been looking into this too, and much of our analysis agrees. The figure of $906 million found in the 2021 report, for the first time, names fast offering assistance as a constituent part of that figure, which could very well explain the massive jump in numbers. Fast offering assistance, however helpful to members of the church, isn't helpful to non-members. Therefore, can it really be called charity work? One reason I don't think fast offering assistance can really be called charity work is because the members that the church is giving the fast offering assistance to are often first having tithing extracted from them by the church. They're still paid up members of the organisation, if you will. Lynn G. Robbins proved this point in the April 2005 General Conference.
If the Lord expects even the poorest widow to pay her mite, where does that leave all others who find that it is not convenient or easy to sacrifice? No bishop, no missionary should ever hesitate or lack the faith to teach the law of tithing to the poor. The sentiment of they can't afford to needs to be replaced with they can't afford not to. One of the first things a bishop must do to help the needy is ask them to pay their tithing. Like the widow, if a destitute family is faced with the decision of paying their tithing or eating, they should pay their tithing. The bishop can help them with their food.
Taking someone's money, then giving them money back, doesn't feel like charity to me. But the church clearly thinks it is, or at least wants to present it that way.
From the generous tithes and offerings you have consecrated to the Lord, last year more than $1 billion were used to bless those in need.
The Church's 2022 report states $1.02 billion, which again includes fast offering assistance. It also makes clear that fast offering assistance is offered primarily to church members. However, according to the Widow's Mite, it seems as though for the first time, the LDS Church is now actually using tithing as part of their charitable spending. Myself and others have been highly critical of the Church's practice of not using tithing money for charitable work, when members so often believed that's where it was going. Perhaps in an effort to recover a decrease in tithing payments, they're now finally using at least some of it for charitable purposes. So if true, this is a big win, because by pressuring an organisation as big as the church to give more to charity, ordinary people like you and me can do more charitable good than donating all the money we would ever make in our lifetime. Seriously, if the church, through pressure from people like us, just spends 1% of the $1 billion surplus that's usually funneled away into Enzyme Peak on charity work instead, that would be an increase of $10 million a year in charitable spending. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think I'll ever get to a point where I could be giving $10 million a year to charity. And if we refer back to the Widow's Mite, it looks like the church actually gave 10% of its surplus tithing, which is equal to roughly $96 million. I think it's appropriate that we celebrate this. even if it has come after lots of public pressure. But that same public pressure seems to have caused the church to want to appear more charitable too, hence these big numbers being bandied about that are propped up in large part by internal church welfare. Let's get back to those. We have 906 million being touted in 2021 and 1.02 billion in 2022. Now, I wonder, how much did the church spend on land and real estate purchases in 2021 and 2022? And we aren't talking about land for temples here, before you say it. Historically, before the church changed the way that they report the figures and they inflated them, there have certainly been years when the church has spent far more on real estate and land, sometimes in just one purchase, than they did on charity work. For example, in 2019, the LDS Church paid $129 million for an office building in the centre of London called Alder Castle. That's compared to the between 40 and 70 million that they were spending on charity annually during the period of 1985 to 2020. In that same year of 2019, they also purchased Bridgepoint Industrial Complex in Northlake, Illinois for $71 million. $200 million in real estate in 2019 versus the 40 to 70 million on charity would have the church spending anywhere from 3 to 5 times more on real estate than they did on charity work. We also know the church is a major landowner in the US. But with papers reporting that the church owns $2 billion of farmland in the US, they own almost as much in farmland in the USA alone than they spent on charity between 1985 and 2020. A reminder that the total charitable spend during that period was $2.5 billion. But what about the inflated years, 2021 and 2022? In 2021, the church spent at least $939 million on real estate and land. Major purchases included Parkway 303 West in Arizona, a $449 million industrial development, 18,000 acres of Washington Farmland, which they outbid Bill Gates for, spending $210 million, an undisclosed amount of agricultural land in the UK for $132 million, and a Marriott hotel in Hawaii for $148 million. They therefore spent $33 million more on real estate and land in 2021 than they did on charity work. In 2022, the church spent at least $907 million. Again, major purchases included Parkway 303 East in Arizona, a $600 million industrial development, the Coldham and Goole estates in the UK for $111 million, a CelLink factory for $130 million, and a Dallas, Texas warehouse worth $60 million. Now there's a caveat here, because I've only included verifiable purchases by the church. I know from this article, for example, that the church bought land in Nebraska in 2022, but I can't find an amount for that sale, so therefore I can't count it towards the total. If any of you do know of more land purchases or real estate purchases in the year 2022, let me know and I'll be happy to update the record in a later video, but I'm not willing to just make the statement that they spent more when I can't prove it. So with all that said, 2022 saw the first year where the church spent less on real estate than they claimed to spend on charity work, $113 million less. But let's not forget, they added fast offering assistance in 2021 and 2022 to bump the numbers. The extent of their actual charity work in 2022, according to estimates by the widow's Mite, was somewhere between $175 and $195 million. So that's around 5 times less than they spent on land and real estate, making it sort of a hollow victory for the church. Am I being unfair? Could this be a new start for the church and a positive change in fiscal policy and direction? Possibly. Let me know what you think in the comments. And while we wait and see if this is indeed the way the church intends to move forward, a question certainly to ponder is, why does the church get tax-exempt status as a charity when it spends more on land and real estate investment than it does on actual external charity work? Does that strike you as the way in which Jesus Christ would run his church? After all, that is the claim of the LDS Church.
We as members of the Lord's Church know who stands at its head: Jesus Christ himself.
The Savior lives, and he leads his church.
If you want to know more about the claim that Jesus Christ runs the LDS Church and why that's questionable, watch this next video.